two, one.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Can I Talk with Roz. Happy Friday. So happy to see everyone. I'm straightening my hat here. I'm doing a hat day today. So hi, blessings to everyone. Thank you so much for being on. I'm excited about our program and our conversation today. It's all about edibles and understanding edibles versus smoking for medical patients, and then just talking about the business of edibles and how there's so many people that are interested in getting into the industry from an edibles perspective, and they want to. They're chefs, they're cooks, they're passionate about cooking, and they want to understand, how do I get into the business? How do I start an edible company? So I'm very happy to have, first, let me introduce, we got Eric Range here. Eric is our co-host. Eric, tell everybody hi.
Hi, everybody. I hope your week has been great and fantastic. We're glad you're here with us for another edition of Can I Talk with Roz, and we're looking forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. And then we also have a special guest, Miss Chef Loren with Simply Baked. Chef Loren, tell everybody hi.
Hey, everybody. So happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Chef Loren is one of our members. She's someone that has an edible company, kind of can talk us through what that looks like and the ups and downs of getting into the industry. It looks like you and you're outside. It's beautiful outside. So so happy to have you, Chef. And we also have Bill Monroe, and Bill Monroe is a cannabis business consultant. He is having a little technical difficulties. We're trying to get him synced in, but he will be on in a few minutes. But I want to start out, and I want to get right into the meat and potatoes of it. Chef, tell us how you got into the business, and tell us about yourself, your company, and how you got into the business.
Sure. So I've been a baker and a chef for over 20 years, and years ago, when cannabis was on the ballot for being legalized a number of my friends were like, you should look into that for baking, for your health. Historically, I've been somebody who's always pursuing being as healthy as I can be, eating the best diet that I can eat, practicing yoga. And a few years ago, when this was all happening, I started to investigate different options. And more recently, I have been working with CBD derived from hemp, and for myself have found it's very helpful for me and my health, and everybody around me started to want to be able to consume delicious treats that were healthy for them, that can help them be as healthy as they could be. So I created Simply Baked, and I have a line of vegan, gluten-free, nutrient-dense, low in sugar, high in protein, delicious treats that people use medicinally for sleep, anxiety, inflammation. So that's what I do, and that's how I got to be where I am.
Awesome. Let's first, before we go into the business aspect, let's talk about the medical aspect of edibles. And can you just help us understand with edibles and versus individuals who smoke flower, what the difference is and what that means for patients and for those people that are first new timers to looking at the plant as a potential medical supplement?
Sure. So the first thing is could be obvious to some and not obvious to others. Smoking can be not good for you. If you're inhaling something that you put fire to, there's going to be some aspects of that can be not good. Now, I believe a little bit of something now and then is not going to be bad, but if you're somebody, let's say, for instance, you have cancer and you need to take in medicine every single day, 6 times a day, let's just say, I'm making up these numbers, you maybe don't want to be smoking that much. So that's one way to look at the differences. Now, when you smoke, the effect can be pretty instantaneous. So if, let's say, you have migraines, it might be the way to go for you if you're able to use that, because it can take away pain, like, pretty quick. But if you're using it like I do for, let's say, inflammation or, you know, if somebody with cancer is using it to really work on your insides in a different way. When you eat an edible, it metabolizes in your body completely differently. It goes through your bloodstream, it goes through your liver, it goes through everything. And it works on a much different cellular level than if you smoke something. Like I said, there is occasions to smoke. There's occasions you could also use a tincture. You know, it's in like an alcohol base. There's oils, there's topical, you know, there's so many options out there. So depending on what your need is would depend on why you would have one option or the other.
Right.
You know,
Did that answer that?
I've talked a lot about how you know, for in particular the aging communities. You know, I think about my mother who's a diabetic, and you know, talking to her about, you know, infusing CBD into her, you know, her health regimen, and maybe even THC if the need arises. But she, you know, I'm never going to, you know, I guess suggest to her to begin smoking. You know, at this stage in her life, that may not be the best thing for her. But more importantly, what I try to do is educate folks and let them know that technology has brought us so much further than where we were in the 60s, when, you know, the only options available to you were primarily, rolling up a joint or something and lighting it and smoking it. But, you know, I think edibles offer a very safe alternative, non-threatening alternative for the aging populations who are, you know, looking at this and they're saying, you know, listen, I don't want to begin smoking at this day in my life. I've never smoked this. I've never smoked a tobacco cigarette. I've never, you know, smoked. And so smoking and vaping is not really the option. So tell us about, you know, what are your clients or some of the people that you service? You know, what do they look like? What are their demographics? Are they, what are you seeing in that regard?
So something that sparked something else that you just said. I just want to say, for children, you know, you were talking about elderly people. Also for children, we don't want children to be smoking, you know. So if you have a child with epilepsy or cancer, you know, eating something is probably going to be better than smoking. But my demographic, you know, ranges from, I have a lot of moms, you know, so they definitely don't want to be smoking. Moms with anxiety, moms that can't sleep. So I have a lot of moms. And then I have a lot of a lot of my clients, they're very, very health conscious. They're people who eat a very plant-based, balanced, nutrient-dense diet. They're very into yoga. They're very into exercising. Their body is a temple. So those clients, they have either never smoked or they will never smoke for sure. So my product helps people looking for some relief in the most, you know, pure organic form that they can without inhaling smoke.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Why is it? So I had an experience with, I was out in Las Vegas and I had an experience. I was dealing with some pain and I needed like a little something for the pain, but also something to give me a little and I tried an edible. And why is it, you know, for those who have not tried them before, why do they always say start slow and kind of manage yourself? Because I took one gummy. Yep. I took a piece off. I took half off. Let me tell you something, and I'm not a consumer, but when I'm dealing with a herniated disc that caused me a lot of pain, I was at the MJ BizCon, and so I was like, okay. So I went to, you know, so it's recreational. So I was in a consumption-friendly state. I went to my dispensary. So the dispensary has so much you can choose from. And we're going to talk about like folks that want to get into the business. How do you get your brand back into the business? I mean, get your brand on a dispensary store shelf. So long story short, I take half of the gummy. I take it. I'm like, all right, good. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and take the other half. An hour later, 45 minutes later, I was whirling around like I was going, and I had to do some different things. And I felt like I was in a tub, in a washing machine spinning tub. And I couldn't get my clothes together. So just talk about, you know, I know you talk about metabolizing, but for individuals who are new to it, why do you say start slow and to kind of, there's no dosing right now. There's no complete way of understanding what's the right thing for an individual, correct?
Yeah. So this is something I share with, I'm also a personal chef, so I cook privately for people. And this is what I share with my clients. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's body is made up of different things. Different foods will affect different people in different ways. Some people can't eat lettuce. So when it comes to edibles, everybody's body is different. What else did you eat that day? How much did you sleep that day? How much water did you consume? If you're a woman, are you on your cycle? Everything that's going on in your body determines it. Now, if you are somebody who consumes edibles regularly, you're right. When you first start, you want to test it. So with my CBD products, there's no opportunity, you don't get stoned or high. You just get the anti-inflammatory aspects and you get a little bit of a calming aspect. So, but as far as dosing, you want to start small because you never know how much is going to make you feel a certain way. And I have a friend, it takes 2 hours for her to feel something from an edible. She feels it once it hits 2 hours, but it takes 2 hours because of the rate at which she metabolizes everything in her body. So some people, it takes 10 minutes for them to feel something. And you don't know until you test it. So like your experience with the gummy bear, Roz, you started small, but after 20 minutes, you didn't feel anything. And you were like, well, I didn't feel anything. And then you felt something, right?
I did.
So that's why we say start small, maybe 2.5 or even, maybe 2.5 milligrams or 5 milligrams. Things are typically in 10 milligram dosage. Some of my clients, that have been able to go to states around the country have found that they need 20 milligrams, and then there's a whole other aspect that we haven't even gotten into. Oh, there you go. Yep. That we haven't even gotten into. And it's such a broad topic. All the different strains have all different ratios of 5-1 THC to CBD, 10-1, 1-1. And all of those differences, you choose from those depending on what you're taking it for. And so, I mean, it is such a there's so many variables, which is basically the biggest answer. There's so many variables to how an edible will affect you. So that's why we say start little and see what happens. And literally wait an hour and a half, because it can hit you, because it goes through your body, it ends up in your liver, and it could take that long to go through.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Well, I held up a edible that again, a sample of one from Las Vegas, and this is a Kiva brand. And so when individuals are getting into the industry and wanting to get in, and as you were thinking of the process, Chef, like, are you looking at for yourself? Are you looking at doing something similar to this, where you have branded products that are on shelf, or what's your end game when you look at this, the edible game, from a business standpoint?
Yeah, well, I live in Florida, so currently my options are very limited. I make and sell my CBD products, which are very popular and make a difference for people. But here in Florida, I'm not able to make the impact that I want to make. And moving is not really something that's probably going to happen anytime soon. If I were to move to Colorado, California, Massachusetts, then growing and becoming more brand recognized would be something I'm looking to do. It's just not an option for me where I am currently.
Right.
I do have a legitimate business in Florida for my CBD baked goods, and I also do non-CBD baked goods. But because of where I am, my options are limited.
Loren, I know that I know this because you and I are close friends personally, and I know you've met with a few of the license holders here in Florida and attempted to go through there. What was that experience like, attempting to join an organization that is licensed to cultivate and so on? And what were your takeaways, I guess, from that? Just trying to get integrated into the system here in Florida.
Yeah. Sure. So the learning curve is like this, in anything new. And so I did meet with and attempt to work with some of the different license holders, and they're just not there yet. What you have to do in the food industry to produce a product already is an incredible mountain to climb that I've done in the cannabis CBD world. And then you add this amazing plant that has so many dimensions. The license holders are just not, they weren't, when I met with them, they weren't ready yet. And so, again, we're in Florida, which is beautiful as I sit here outside in the beautiful outside, but it's a challenge to bring together food, which is very complicated already, food safety, nutritional information, consistency, and a quality product. And then you introduce this medicine and integrating that. It's very complicated. The rewards are tremendous, but it's very complicated, very layered, I should say.
Sure.
So my experience was that it didn't go very far. But hopefully as the industry continues to grow, something will shift.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So with a standpoint, I think we got Bill Monroe coming in soon. Can you hear us, Bill, yet? Bill?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, Bill is on.
Hey, Bill.
Good. So I got some follow up on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that follow up because I know your experience has been interesting as well. So yeah, go ahead.
Right. So you have 3 or 4 different license holders going with branded edibles at the moment. You got Bang Chocolate coming in. You got Incredibles coming in. You've got AltMed bringing in a group. Dixie Elixirs is partnering with one group here in Florida, but I haven't found out which one yet. But I encourage organic growth in Florida, where you can these license holders have to have their own commercial kitchens, and in there they have to follow good manufacturing practices and they have to use their own product. Well, that's fine. What somebody would need to do is somebody like the lady there, or some of the chefs, or a group, and I'm talking to some of them, one in St. Augustine, one down in Broward. What they want to do is partner with some of these license holders. Whether you come in, you license the product, you put the equipment in, you set it up, and then there's some type of royalty structure. Now, the larger manufacturers are charging anywhere between 10 to 15% royalty on their products. So that's off of gross sales. And then what they do is they jack up the price of those, the prices on those premium edible products to cover that royalty is what they do. And if you look at edibles, it's anywhere, from what I found, is anywhere between 7 to 10% of the total market. So, to be paying 15% royalties on gross profit sales to bring in Bang Chocolate or Incredibles in Florida that's only had medicinal around for a while. Do you want to do that? You'd be better off growing your own organic brand. The Eric range chocolate, Incredible chocolate bars, or something like that, or the Chef Loren baked goods or something. And I know that there's license holders that are interested in that. It's just a matter of connecting with them. I know that Loop's Nursery is looking for an edible partner, and others. And to follow up on that too, I just got off the phone a while ago with a chef. Michael Fatah, and he was working with Courtney Coppola and others. And Courtney, the way her approach was, this is just another ingredient that goes into chocolate. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't follow under the MMTCs. And she directed him over to the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Agriculture then pointed Michael back over to the Department of Health. And they were both pointing at each other as what was going on. So that hasn't stopped Chef Michael Fatah from creating his own products. If you Carlos, who's over there in, who's got Chillum Labs, a CBD place over there in Tampa, he's selling his products. The chef is selling products internationally, Germany, other countries overseas, other states, in Florida. Green Roads, I believe, carries his products. I'm not sure. I thought he said that. But he's selling his CBD products throughout the state, because CBD right now is a big gray area, as everybody knows. You go to the health food store, you go to, Lucky's, you go to Walmart, you can find CBD oil in there. As long as you're manufacturing it and you're doing it in a GMP fashion and you're not going after children and you're taking a responsible method on that, people are probably going to leave you alone. And if you start making big money, then certainly don't let people know, because people then are going to go after you and target you and go, oh, get that guy out of here, he's a bad actor, because you attract attention. So, I believe that there's a market here for CBD baked goods and edibles in Florida. Trying to ask for permission, I don't know if you want to go that route. I mean, I would say go what everybody else is doing, create the products, go find people that are going to carry your products, knock on the doors, do that, just like other entrepreneurs are doing in Florida. Start creating your lines, putting it out there. I know edibles has a shorter shelf space, so you have to get that rapid turnover, at times, but I don't see it, I don't see any barriers there until somebody comes and says, you can't do that, in which case I would have a good lawyer and go, tell me why not, on that point.
So Bill, let's talk about this. And I'm so happy to have you on. First and foremost, guys, Bill is a cannabis consultant here based in Florida. So we're all here in Florida, but we're going to talk about outside of Florida. Trust me, because I know that there's people in Michigan, Missouri, New Jersey, California, Colorado, Georgia. You're everywhere, and you're figuring out, how do I start my own edible company? And so Bill is a cannabis consultant. He has created a manual in regards to understanding the edibles industry and what that presents, and how to really start breathing life into if that's your passion and you want to do it, how to breathe life into that passion. Bill, the question I have for you is, talk about, again, I want to do Roz's incredible chocolate line or this Rice Krispie line or what have you. Talk about the GMP industrial kitchen. What are some of the things, the core things that someone needs to have in place in order to even start breathing life into having their own line of products? And especially if it's in a state where there is a brand new legislation that's just come in. I'm not talking about a California or Colorado. I'm talking about some of the new states that are coming on board right now. What do you do if you really want to go and you just, right now you're waiting for everything to kind of reveal itself and to open up?
I would say start the easy route first, where you're looking at the non-euphoric cannabinoids like CBD, and then maybe get a little bit harder down the road and go to THC. But if you want to get into the market now, you're looking at a commercial kitchen is roughly going to run you about $250 a square foot. If you want to build your own commercial kitchen, get started, you got to bring in a chef in, you have to have good manufacturing practices, all that. If you don't want to purchase your own commercial kitchen, then find a commercial kitchen out there, lease it, rent it. There may be some different groups out there that are not doing anything with a commercial kitchen during the week, like the Elks Lodge or somebody else who might have a blessing of commercial kitchen. And you go to the city leaders and you kind of tell them that what you're doing, you make sure that you have all your city permits to do cooking, you have a chef in there involved. And where do you get your CBD from? You can get CBD isolate, or you can get a full spectrum, and then you can mix that in with your butter.
So Bill, so stop and tell them the difference between isolate and full spectrum. So again,
sure.
What that means.
And isolate is just one unique cannabinoid. There's over 130 cannabinoids in cannabis. You can debate less or more or whatever. I've heard different numbers, but cannabidiol is one isolate, non-euphoric isolate. So what they do there is they take biomass, they extract it, they go through a chemical process, and they just have that one isolate that tests at a certain percentage pure, 95% pure, 99% pure, and then they do a full profile test on it to make sure it doesn't have any solvents, heavy metals, or anything of that sort, because you want to use a clean product. So any cook out there or any group that's using a isolate, make sure that they can show you the full profile testing, the certificate of authority that matches that actual batch product you're buying. So you know it's clean before you mix it in with your butter.
That is an important part of food.
Right.
That is a very important part of this whole process.
Now, when you get away from isolate, you get into oil. So, you know, what they call full spectrum oil. And the oil itself is just another way of extracting oil from the cannabis plant, where it's got to be below 0.3 THC. But in addition to CBD, it has the other cannabinoids that work together in an entourage effect. It has the terpenes, it has the flavonoids. You know, there may be more of a cannabis taste to it, you might say, or smell to the product. You know, sometimes I get a snickerdoodle cookie and I try it, and with isolate, I'd have no taste. But when I use a full spectrum oil in there, you know, there's a little bit hint of cannabis taste to it or smell to it, but not much. It still tastes like a snickerdoodle cookie to me. But to me, it's got more of the medicinal effect of it if you're using a full spectrum oil. Sometimes they take these full spectrum oils and they freeze dry it, and then it's a powder, and then you can mix that powder in with your butter and get it in that way. You know, homogenize it into to your butter or your cooking oil or honey or whatever in that shape and fashion. So it all depends on whether you want to use an isolate, which is just one cannabinoid, or B, full spectrum, where you're using CBD. And it may have THC in it, but it's below that federal mandate of 0.3% THC because you've tested it. And it has all those other cannabinoids and terpenes, and it has all those medicinal effects, and you're putting that in your product. And you're getting a lot more of the entourage effects of the cannabinoids, the terpenes, the flavonoids, all kind of mixing together. The way I mix it, you know, it's like chicken soup. Chicken soup has chicken in it, and it also has vegetables and broth and other things in it that give it the taste. And when you're sick, it tastes great. So, but you know, CBD isolate is just the chicken in the chicken soup, if that makes any sense.
Hey, Chef Loren, what do you use when you make your product? Do you use powder? Do you freeze dry it, put the powder into your butter, or you use oil for your cooking?
I use a full spectrum distillate.
Okay.
Yeah, I use,
Is it in an oil form or is it in a powder form?
It's in an oil, but it's very thick. It's like goopy, almost.
Okay.
It's not like, I mean, it becomes liquidy when I melt it down. You know, when I heat it a little bit, but it's at room temperature. It's thick.
Well, there's one group. There's one group down in Miami that I've seen where they've been taking the CBD oil and spraying it in type of a chamber with silica in there, and then it turns into a powder. And then that way you can put it in encapsulated products, or you can put it more in vials or jars. It doesn't become this gooey mess. And they're one of two that are doing it here in the United States. So there's a whole lot of little niche areas going on where they're converting the oil over so it's easier to handle.
Okay. So everyone that's listening, you're trying to get into the edibles business. The first thing first is making sure that you have your business, you know, registered with the state wherever you are. We talked about the CBD commercial kitchen, finding a place, either renting or finding someone that you can share some commercial space. You want to have your city permits. You want to look at, again, finding your isolate. You want to either do an isolate or full spectrum. And then from there, we talked about, you know, making sure that there's a profile test for your isolate or your full spectrum, making sure there's no chemicals or no solvents in your product. Correct? Am I right, Bill?
Yes. You want to make, you know, full profile testing. You get a certificate authority, and make sure whoever tested it, the COA, certificate authority, matches the actual batch product you're buying. Okay. Isolate, that was all over the board as far as prices. I've seen it anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 a kilo. The other day, I found it at $5,800 a kilo for 80 kilos. So the more you get, the cheaper it is. But, you know, I don't know about oil. Oil is probably, you know, a bit less than isolate. And there's a whole lot of speculators running out there buying $500,000, $1.5 million at a time of oil, trying to corner the market and get it for these big groups. I've run across groups already here in Sarasota and other places where they're planning on putting CBD into drinks and beverages and everything else. I mean, these are large $1 million corporations that are already, trying to go that route and everything.
Right.
So,
Right.
they're not asking for permission. They're just going in that direction. That's why when I'm saying with the small person who wants to get in the business, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. Bill, to that point, with you having in Florida is, I think, a very picture perfect, for this example, where you have these large, conglomerate companies, well capitalized, who are certainly, making their claim here in the state. But then you have the smaller mom and pops. How is it that the smaller mom and pops are going to be able to compete in this market with, some of these larger companies? What are they going to need to do to position themselves to remain here 5, 10, 20 years down the road?
So here's where I see some opportunity is in states like Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, especially up around Asheville and those areas where people are doing these 100 to 500 acre tracts of hemp, which is cannabis below 0.3 THC, and they're CBD, they're high in CBD. So what you do is I see a perfect entrepreneurial opportunity where you can have people with trailers that have these extraction units inside. They pull in, they extract the biomass, they take the oil, they keep the oil into an area, and then you bring in all the local women there in a community of say 5,000, that like to cook and bake. You form an LLC and you go to the mayor and you've got 20 to 30 women knocking on the mayor's door saying, we're going to start this company and this is what we want to do. And he goes, jobs, great, that's fantastic. And then you find a commercial kitchen in the town. So you've got the farmer who's creating the biomass, and then you've got a person who's traveling around in a trailer, extracting oil and refining it. And then you have that oil then going to a group, say an LLC, within these small towns, disadvantaged towns that are slowly dying out there in America. And they take that oil and they create these edibles in this kitchen. And you got the city council, you got the sheriff behind you, you got everybody else in there, and it's jobs. And the last thing you want to do is make 20 to 30 local women angry in a community and tell them, while they're already starting it, don't do it, because they're gonna march right over you. So at that point, creating the products, and then you have to get with a packaging company and you package it, and then you find yourself a distribution channel. And those could be local distribution channels within the state or out of state at that point, as you're going along.
Right. So I'm continuing to recap, because this is hopefully going to be a video that people look at and they can actually take actual solutions to get started or figure out where their place is. So we're talking about states where there is maybe not a medical marijuana program right now, but you're saying start with CBD. Let's talk about a state like a Colorado or Oregon or California that there is a program. Massachusetts, there's recreational as well. If people that are there, how do they, they need to have their ducks in a row, I'm sure, but can they go to maybe a cultivator or a processor and say, hey, I have a edible line that I need to partner with you, because you're going to have to get product from them. How would they do that?
So for example, in West Virginia, where they have a really bad opiate problem there and other drugs, they have a lot of grant money, they have a lot of state money, and they're just looking for groups that have come in that can help get people off the opiates and give them jobs and give them an alternative at that point. So some of the folks that I've been talking to are going to these states like West Virginia and others and going, hey, you've got grant money there to get people off of opiates. What we'd like to do is we'd like to work with the local farmers, the local Indian, the Indian tribe down the street, the other groups, and grow hemp, and then take that biomass, convert it over to oil, and then provide them a product, that they can use that will provide, wellness, reduce their inflammation, that type of thing. And when you bring medicinal in, we can sell that to the local dispensaries in that area. So you've already got a foothold with the CBD. And when medicinal comes in, now you can then go off to your distribution channels like your dispensaries and sell to them. But you've got to work with your local politicians, the Department of Agriculture, your local state senator and your representative, get them all on board. And if you want to get their attention, talk jobs, talk about reducing the opiate dependency problem, all those areas. That's where you need to focus on. Don't talk about cannabis, the plant, freedom, all that. I get it. Okay. But the lawmakers are only going to listen to jobs, money, and, and if they got a bunch of economic development. Exactly.
Right, exactly.
That's what you
so
need to focus on.
because we're really talking about, we have communities of color, that there's individuals that want to give back to their communities. They want to hire in their communities. They want to create this kitchen or what have you. So they may be in Illinois, where Illinois has a medical state for the program, and they want to start their own edible business. So you mentioned something about packaging. How do you, and Chef Loren, how did you find your packaging company? What are some of the resources? And I will say this, that attending the MJ Biz conference out in Las Vegas, I ran across at least 10 packaging companies who are ready to help with packaging. But what does that look like, Bill and Chef, if you have any input as well from a packaging standpoint? You got you know what your product line is going to be. You know how to develop it. You know how to get your isolate. But the packaging part of it, what does that entail?
So for me, because I'm on a very small scale, I'm the packager right now, I have labels and I have nutritional information, so I do that all on my own. But as I grow and when I'm bigger and selling to other people, there's so many things about packaging. It needs to keep the food safe. It needs to keep the food dry. It needs to keep the food as fresh as long as possible. Mm-hmm. Exactly. You need to have, regular nutritional information. Now you need to have, the information about the plant and where it comes from and, all of that. Exactly. So, there's packaging, but now I'm talking about labeling, and labeling is a whole other world. And so, right now I'm doing it on my own, but as I grow and I'm maybe in a co-packing facility or I'm in my own facility, packaging and labeling it's like a whole completely other business. Just like you said, that there are companies that were there looking to do that.
Right.
And Bill, real quick before I think one other thing too, Loren, is with your packaging, considering whether you're using a environmentally sustainable package, are you using something that is going to be BPA free? All of these details come down and also impact your cost as well. Are you going to use plastic? Or are you going to use, some other type of paper product? All of these things come down into making, the decisions on what you're going to use.
Right. Yes. And a lot of that I've run around the state already and have that in the report I put together to kind of help people out is that I've visited the various co-packers, and a co-packer is a group that has all the equipment for bottling or for taking your product and sealing it. They supply all that, and a lot of it's BPA free, and they've gone through all that with various clients, so they pretty much know all that as we go along. Now, on the chef side, there are companies that will supply equipment where you take, for example, a baked good, you stuff it in the package that's already been designed for you. It's got the applicable information you need on it, and then you stick it in there, and then you take it, and then you got to seal it, and then you put it in a box, and then you repeat that process over and over again. Now, there's a lot of manual work in that. You're doing your own fulfillment in there at that point. Now, say if Chef Loren gets an order for 200,000 baked good products next week, she's not going to be doing that. So she's going to be going,
from your lips, Bill.
So Chef Loren's going to be going, wow, what do I do now? I mean, great, I'm successful, but now I need to look at maybe a co-packer who can do all that for me. They can bring in a team. And then what does that cost per day? Does that cost, $5,000 a day to start up that operation? And then how many products can you produce for me? So now what is my expense per each one of those products divided by X number? Now, what is my margin I need to mark it up to? And these are things I'm already going through with clients to kind of figure all that out. So in the beginning, it's small, and I can certainly point people to groups there, small groups, small packaging groups. And then when they get bigger, I have other bigger packaging groups here in Florida and other states that do that. So if you hear the word packer, That's a group that's already doing that for the industry, either for the shampoo industry or the food industry or that. And what they do is they clean up all their equipment, they make sure it's all steamed and everything, and then you bring in their product and they go, okay, we're going to start up this line for 3 days. Chef Loren, you need to give me 100,000 candy bars, in cold management containers, and we will put them in these packages, and then we will box it and wrap it and then put it in the freezer, and then you have to come over and pick it up. So that's kind of how you do that in.
Roz, if I could add a to your list, I know you were doing like a recap list of, the steps you need to take. If we can add a 0 to that list and put that at 0 research, and really understanding the market you're getting into, understanding the products that you're working with, because I think we have this conversation quite often. A lot of people want to get into this industry, but they don't understand how much time and effort you actually have to put into doing the research and understanding. You have to become the expert of your particular niche area in the space, or you have to find somebody like a Bill Monroe and hire him, and that comes at a cost. You're either going to spend the time or you're going to spend the money. So I think that's a good, put that at 0 before number 1.
Before number 1, I got it.
Right. I'll have people, I'll give them a little bit of time on the phone, and then they want to keep calling me over and over and over again. I'm going, look, there's an opportunity cost. I can't keep talking to you for hours for free, and I'm losing the opportunity to make some money somewhere else.
But Bill, tell everyone about the market research report that you put together that maybe, if they can't have your time and afford you as an individual, talk about what you put together as a manual and how you're going to make this available at a cost point, but it's something that's reasonable to get people familiar with the industry and where to go with it.
Right. So what I've done there is I've created reports, and I've been working on a manual for the last 5 years. It's about 200 pages. It covers everything in the cannabis vertical, from a business standpoint, not from a step-by-step, like if you're a cultivator or whatever, it talks about it from business. So from the cultivation to dry and cure to extraction to dispensaries to inventory to packaging, I have all that in the manual, along with sales and marketing, quite a bit of different things. Every time I get it, I think I've got pretty much everything I want in there. I find something else and add to it. So what I decided to do is take this manual and benchmark it and make it available to people and also to corporations. So what I've done is I'm making it available to individuals on a one-time purchase for $500, and then for corporations it's $5,000 for the year, and that gives them follow-up information, follow-up sections, reports, opportunities that I see along the way. In other words, they get a continuous stream of information throughout that whole year at that point for that amount of money. And somebody can look at it and go, well, $500, that's a lot for one individual, but when you've spent years traveling all over the state and Colorado and Alaska and Washington State and others and seeing all of it and kind of going, okay, let's distill all that and put it in, it's going to save people a lot of time and money in there along the way.
Right.
And, that's pretty much what a consultant does, is they've already put in all the legwork, all the hard work, and they're just giving business people a way of purchasing that information instead of paying $10,000 in a year or longer, to go off and run all over and find this out for yourself. Somebody's already done it and put it in a nice little package and go, here, I got a ribbon around it and I'm going to give it to you.
Right.
For cost.
Right. So let's go back as we look at the industry right now and regarding edibles. I mean, I did a little bit of research and I found out that in 2016, one of the levels, like all of the different businesses in cannabis, edibles was the number one area where there were a lot of investment money going into people that want to develop their line, or they have a line, they need more money for capacity or whatever. Tell us, what do you think is this something that's going to continue to trend where edibles is going to be a part of these dispensaries and it's going to be more people looking for it? Or what do you think from a revenue standpoint and a business standpoint, Bill?
What I'm seeing in total sales, everything that I've run across, is edibles is about 7 to 10% of your total sales in a dispensary. A lot of women are buying edibles, people that wanting low dosing, like 5 to 10 milligrams of THC and CBD, mints, chocolates, things of that sort. If you're going to spend millions of dollars to buy an edible company or to create your own, that's not going to define the brand of your dispensary or to define the brand of your company. It just complements it at that point. So that's where I was thinking, just deal with your local chefs and groups and do the goodwill thing. I think you're going to get more out of the goodwill that if you help a local community of ladies get together and bake products, or chefs. So you bring a chef in and you bring people in and get that all going. And then a percentage of that, of your edible sales goes off towards, certain foundations, the LGBT community, that type of thing, to help them all out. You're going to get a lot more with the goodwill, with combining goodwill with your edibles company on there. And I think some of these folks that are spending millions to get into edibles, I think what they're looking for is not making that money on sales. They're looking at that money as an exit plan. So you build up an edibles company, and then you go, look, I got a great edibles company, and you want to buy us $5, $10, $20 million. And then, they collect their paycheck, and then they're going down to the islands, and, it's retirement payday. So that's their exit plan, I think, more than anything else. That's just my.
Can you share about licensing agreement and what that means for someone that's looking? Let's say, for example, we have someone out there that already has a company, has already created, they're already packaged, but now they want to get folks to put it in their dispensaries. What does that licensing agreement or that white labeling look like from a revenue sharing or a royalty standpoint?
Sure. I'll just, hypothetical here using Chef Loren and what type of products do you develop? Edibles? Baked goods or?
They're baked goods, vegan and gluten-free chocolates and cookies.
Great. So vegan, vegan, gluten-free chocolates, cookies, and things of that sort. So she's got a business plan. She's got a product. She approaches one of the license holders here in Florida or in your state. You go to them and you say, hey, look, here's my products. Here's all my cost of goods. Here's what I can sell it to you at a wholesale level. And at that point, I'm looking for a 5% royalty on gross profit sales, or 3% or higher. It all depends on how much visibility you have to your product. But if Chef Loren gets on television and she's interviewed by some of the leading chefs in this and QVC channel, and then she goes to one of the license holders and they go, oh yeah, I saw you in the QVC channel. And they go, yeah, 5 million people saw me. And they go, wow, you've got a lot of exposure there. Now at that point, she's maybe going to ask for a higher royalty, maybe 10%, 12%, based on that. And that's how she's getting her money there. She gets 10 to 12% of royalties. And Chef Loren may also have a clause in her royalties contract where she says, now, here's the clause. You have to sell X number of units of my cookies every month. And if you don't do that, then I don't have an exclusive with you anymore, and I'm going to sell to these other companies. So as long as you're pushing my product, and I'm making them, making it, and I'm giving you a nice, clean product that it doesn't have to be recalled, and I'm building your brand and all that. It's everything's great. We're all doing well, But if you're not meeting those sales marks, okay, at that point I can go off to another dispensary, another group. Or maybe, they have it where they pay you a fee, where they make up the difference on that, where if they sell 50,000 units of Chef Loren's, products and they're only selling 40,000, then they say, okay, you got to make up the difference at that point, on there.
Okay.
Or, so you all, the thing I noticed about the cannabis industry is there's no set contract. There's no set way of doing business. It's all what you want to come up with, so we define reality. So what I would say is for all those people out there, to define your own reality, get with a contract lawyer, bring it all up, talk about it, build relationships, and then have it where you win and they win. They have to push your product. They have to sell your product. You have to provide them a good product that's, gluten-free, those type of things. And maybe also you look at niche markets where you're developing kosher products, where you've got kosher edibles, and there's large, Jewish communities like down in Florida. We have Fort Lauderdale in those areas where you can provide them a kosher edible. So that's where I would say is work on your contract, look at your niche market, and make sure you're always never, buy tested material. Every oil, every isolate, everything you buy better be tested. Do not try to shorten that process and go, well, I'll take it and I'll just trust that it's clean and it's not Chinese or some other material added in there at that point. So you got to maintain your quality standards all along the way.
Well,
Bill, you touched on something in regards to the niche market, and it's something Chef Loren and I have spoken about before. Edibles right now tend to, fall in the sweets category, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I haven't seen much attention to the folks who don't do sweets. My mother was diagnosed with diabetes at 10.
Yeah.
So I never took to sweets the way that others do. Hence, I'm not a huge edible, I'm not a huge fan of edibles and so on. I'm not going to get, up in arms over a gummy bear or a cookie or, those kind of things, I need or looking for. And do you think there will be a place for those like non-sugar,
Sure.
for other, niches to come about? You talked about kosher and so on.
Right. I've seen infused tea bags. I've seen fruit leathers that somehow they I don't know whether they're spraying the product on the fruit leather or somehow mixing it in there with the and getting it into the fruit leather at that point. I've seen honey where they've taken the honey and they go through a 2-pot method to infuse the cannabinoids into the honey. And then they put that in honey sticks or dropper bottles or something of that sort, where you have CBD honey. There's one group out there now that remember I mentioned the goodwill part? Well, they have beekeepers that go out there and find wild hives that are in people's yards and they don't want to have them destroyed. And they move those bees into their area. And then they use those redirected bees and then take that honey and then use that. So you got the goodwill of moving it, saving the bees, and using the honey into a baked goods. Now there's certain type of honeys you want to use, like Tupelo honey or orange blossom honey. You get to some of the darker honeys that may not be that good for cooking, but I'm not a chef. I would have to defer to Chef Loren on that one.
Eric, something I've seen on the non-sweet side, I've seen crackers, popcorn, and then there are some, and then there's also some really gourmet chefs out there that are cooking meals with the plant, the herbal chef in California and different, that's probably more on the recreational side than the medicinal side. And it is something that if you want to use medicinally, like I think we talked about, there's some infused olive oils in California. So if you're not a sweets person, you can use the infused olive oil, on your salad. And,
right.
The label says I'm making this measurement up, but a half a teaspoon is 5 milligrams of the medicine. So, those are some ways that non-sweet people can have, the medicine in an edible form.
Right. So the takeaways from today have been huge. And I think chefs are like artists to me, and it's just being creative. Would you say, in regards to thinking of the uses? What would you say about that? The creativity of being able to look at something, and I think it's creating a brand, but also what we're talking about is not far off from what you would do. Let's say, for example, if you just want to make a regular cookie line, you just go Google how to create a cookie line, and then now you just put my cookie line has CBD in it. So am I right there? Am I, in regards to kind of how to figure out how to get started? So it's not rocket science. I don't know.
It's not hard to get started. There are already people doing that on a small scale. I know some ladies that are making their own edible cookies, at that point. And a friend of mine tells me they're quite tasty. So,
right.
and they work well for putting you to sleep at night. But that's just what I hear. So, so I don't think it's hard. The problem is scalability. Okay, you've got somebody, you can make cookies in your kitchen. You can take some some isolate, or you can take some oil and you can mix it in. You can make cookies. Great. Okay, that's fine. Now, how do you do that on a scale where you're following good manufacturing practices? You're doing that in a commercial kitchen. You've got 5 to 10 people that can help you produce X amount per scale. And then you've got to have the packaging material and all that. This is not hard. The whole process is not hard. It's just scaling it is what you got to look at. You got to do your research on the scaling, get all your different elements and components in place, make sure you have enough money to do it along the way, but that's dependent upon your business plan. Are you going after, a small mom and pop market, or are you going after the whole state or multiple states? But I would say start small, work your way up.
Right.
And if you're a small community out in North Carolina and South Carolina, and you're listening to this, and you're going, we're a town of 3,000. The town center is falling apart. We're having a hard time getting tenants in. We got beautiful farming land nearby. What do we do? How do we build our economic engine at that point? I would say, you get hold of a consultant, and then you get hold of a chef. You get hold of somebody who's got extraction equipment, and a consultant can usually find you a chef in the extraction group and bring them all in. And you sit there and you talk with the city manager, you talk with the city leaders, and you go, let's have a round table. Let's have a coffee discussion, or down at the local pub and talk about this. This is what we'd like to do. We'd like to get this going. What do you think? Yes or no? We're talking about, starting with CBD, a non-euphoric cannabinoid. We're going to do this, and we think we can produce X number of jobs. Are you with us or not? And
Sure.
If they go yes, then you start putting together a business plan, and you start scaling it, and then you go on from there. And it's just a process. It's a step-by-step process. Takes a little bit of time to do it, but that's where you start. Everything starts with a conversation and a discussion.
Yeah, and I think we also need to encourage people to define success for themselves. Right. Not everybody's going to be a multi-million-dollar business, nor should they. I think you can be a very successful small-scale mom-and-pop brand that serves your immediate community, and you can add another revenue stream to what whatever your business is, or a secondary income that we're looking for. Not everybody has to, and I think that's the common mistake. That everybody who wants to get into cannabis, they feel like they're going to be millionaires, and it's just not the reality of what's available and what's at plate. So I think if you can redefine success for yourself as what that looks like for you, and it might be a small scale, you will find that it becomes much more attainable. When you're dealing with something that's much more realistic.
What I would say about the cannabis business also is, if you're not in this business for passion, to help people out, or because you enjoy cooking, or you enjoy business or logistics, like, I'm a logistics weenie. I enjoy, cannabis has so many different elements to it. I love that. I enjoy getting into it. But if you're not into it to kind of put together a business and help people, and you're just an investor and you're thinking this is a quick turnaround, this is money from heaven, and I'm going to just drop a little bit of, a few dollars and get involved in this, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be frustrated.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think that is, on that note, we are almost 1 minute into wrapping up the show, but that is it. If you're not in it to help people and to understand how this becomes another option versus taking tinctures or smoking or suppositories, understanding edibles, understanding how it reacts to the body, understanding how it helps people, how to get them off of opioids, how to help a cancer patient, how to help someone that's having epilepsy utilize this versus smoking if that's not an option. Looking at helping individuals who are not mainstream consumers right now, who are not consumers, but who are in the mainstream, who don't know. Educate, because if you educate and then you supply the product, that could be a good place to be in. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you guys wrap up and say one last thing is, we were approached by a Whole Foods store, and it was like a small, instead of like Whole Foods, it was a small little a store that has, gluten-free, vegan-free food. They had different things. They wanted CBD products. Look for those type of stores in your local neighborhoods. Ask them if they would be interested to carry your line of products. If they say yes, then that tells you right there's an opportunity for business. So, Bill, thank you so much for your time. Chef Loren, I appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for sharing with us. Eric, any parting words before we wrap up for today?
Well, real quick before I do that, Bill and Loren, if you guys want to share where folks can reach out to you as well, how they can connect with you to, Bill to get your manual, and Loren to get some of those tasty delights, let the people know where they can find you.
Sure. Chef, I'll let ladies first.
Sure. So probably the best way to find me is on Facebook under Loren Pulitzer and Simply Baked.
All right, Loren Pulitzer, Simply Baked on Facebook.
Yeah, it's Loren.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can also reach out to Roz and myself, and we can get you connected with the chef or Bill as well. But go ahead, Bill.
Bill Monroe, Monroe, and my email is freedompalmbay@yahoo.com. And you can get hold of me through Eric and Roz. I'm on Facebook. I also have two Facebook blogs. One is Florida for Medicinal Marijuana. I have 30,000 followers on that. And the other one is Florida Cannabis Cultivators and Dispensary Group. I have about 2,700 followers on that. So those two different groups. But Roz has my number. Eric, he knows how to get touch me there. So it's not an issue if you need me in your community to kind of get to talk with the local leaders, and we have a round table and get things going. Just let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And both Chef Loren and Bill are members and affiliated with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. You know, they have been around for some time now, and we are so thankful to have them as members. And we encourage you, if you haven't, you know, taken that step to become a member of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you know, do so. We'd love to be a part of helping you to get on your feet in this industry. More importantly, we just thank you guys for being here. We hope that you had a powerful week. We hope that you get some rest and rejuvenate this weekend and get ready for the following week. Take it easy. I love you guys. And until next week.
Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you.